I guess we'll get started. Hi. This talk is called Designing the Future of Virtual Humans. It's not intended to be a technical talk at all. It's more of an overview of many key concepts, advancements, history, and contributors to the field of real-time character technology. Also going to talk about some character tools that we're working on for VR developers. Oops. Yep, so that's me. I am Morgan Young. I'm the president, co-founder, and CEO of Quantum Capture. Those are just very fancy titles, which mean I write emails all day. Some people are really good at Unity and Unreal. I'm really good at Gmail. But in a past life, I was a somewhat talented game artist. I worked at Ubisoft Toronto on some really big AAA blockbuster titles, Assassin's Creed Unity, Splinter Cell Blacklist, and this is where I met my business partner, Craig Alguire, who's the company CTO. Craig worked on Far Cry. We worked on a couple other titles that haven't been announced yet. It was during this time at Ubisoft that we were learning the power of photogrammetry and using a simple 12-camera setup to create really realistic 3D head scans of our colleagues. It was around that time as well that the Oculus DK1 Kickstarter launched, and we got a hold of a headset, combined our 3D scans with the DK1, and as soon as we saw that, our minds were blown, and we realized, holy shit, this is the future of content creation for the next however many years. So we made the decision to jump ship and found Quantum Capture with the intent of fusing digital humans and virtual reality together. So we've had a lot of luck doing this over the past 3 years. We've worked with some pretty reputable clients in the industry, Sony, Nike, Ubisoft actually was our first client, so it was pretty nice to have. And we thought this talk would be interesting to actually dive into a bit of the evolution of real-time characters and see how far the technology and our understanding of it has come. Pretty incredible when you think that this little 8-bit rendering was the first character that we all knew to grew and love. He was first debuted in 1981 as Jumpman in the arcade game Donkey Kong in July, 9th of 1981. It was in the year I was born, 1985, that Super Mario Bros. Was released in North America on the Nintendo Entertainment System home console. And as time went on, Mario arguably became the most recognized character of our generation. And at that time, this little character was the epitome of cutting-edge 3D graphics. The evolution of character development for games, film, and VFX has been both a technical challenge and a learning process for everyone who's undertaken it. No one knows this better than Lara Croft from the Tomb Raider franchise. She's been on the front lines of video game and character technology for decades. Her character's undergone countless technical and stylistic overhauls over the years. From a simple boxy polygonal figure to a strong leading role character with deep emotions and strong performance. Today we see cutting-edge 3D graphics so often that we've, I think, become desensitized to them, and we don't really understand, or we take for granted how far the technology and our understanding of it has really come. So this is a little snapshot of advancements over the last few decades in both real-time graphics rendering and character rendering. The games industry has had to innovate out of necessity to keep pushing the fidelity of character graphics forward. Each one of these development features was a major breakthrough in video game graphics. VR's success owes a lot to the achievements and the advancements of real-time graphics through video games. In my opinion, the industry really hit its stride during the Xbox 360 and PS3 console generation. However, it wasn't quite until the next generation of consoles were released that we really began to harmonize all these features together and start understanding and maximizing their potential. So when you do pull all those features together, you wind up with some pretty stunning visuals. So this is the result of many technical achievements working together to create really cohesive characters that fit into their environments. So if you look at Lara Croft there, you can see evidence of ZBrush sculpting, normal maps, material definition, dynamic hair, depth of field, blur, all that good stuff. And as you start to get all these features cohesively working together, we encounter really stunning graphic visuals. However, as you start to push past this level of character rendering, it takes a sharp drop and in realism, and this is the effect of the Uncanny Valley. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the term the Uncanny Valley. The concept was pioneered and created by Masahiro Mori, who was a professor of engineering at the Tokyo Institute of Technology. He came up with this illustration in 1970 to explain sort of the drop in our affinity and our connection to characters as you push sort of more towards one-to-one realistic humans. So if we just look at this quickly, if you look at like 0, 0 space there, that's essentially where a cardboard box would be. We don't have any sort of connection or attachment to a cardboard box. However, once you start giving that cardboard box some humanistic features, like Wall-E there with some eyes and clunky hands, all of a sudden we immediately feel a connection to that character. And we find those humanistic qualities really endearing, and we're comfortable with them. This level of character evokes a response from us that we develop a connection with. So as you keep climbing up that curve, I'd say where it says humanoid robot there, that's probably about where Bender is. Once we push past that, though, and start really pushing the boundaries of what a character looks like in terms of having a human presence, you hit that sharp drop right there, and we lose all of our connection. Characters that can't really convince you that they're real immediately give us a sort of repulsion, an unsettling feeling. We lose empathy for them, and it's not a good thing for anyone who's trying to make beautiful characters for their applications and games. So most examples of this phenomenon are seen in the CG rendering and robotics world. So just a couple nightmarish examples of the Uncanny Valley that kept me up at night having to find these images. But we all immediately can look at these and see that something's not right. We're unsettled by them. It gives us the heebie-jeebies. Even though you can't maybe specifically tell in each one of these characters what it is that's giving you that sort of anxious feeling. And generally, this is the response from most people when they see characters like this. The underlying cause behind this phenomenon is rooted deep within the most primal parts of our brains. So it's our body's biological response. And what's going on is actually interesting when we peel back the layers and start looking. Our brains are so well trained to look for human emotional responses by analyzing facial expressions that anything which obscures us from doing this is perceived as threatening. We constantly analyze facial expressions for cues of intent. It's kind of the friend or foe idea. The Uncanny Valley is, in essence, our brain's own built-in natural response mechanism to threat and disease. So masks. Masks play into the Uncanny Valley very interestingly. As humans began settling and banding together and adopting tribalism for survival, masks often became ingrained in cultures and religions as tools of conflict and war. They've been used to make certain individuals anonymous and to confuse our rivals' senses and intimidate our enemies. The premise is, if I can't tell you're smiling at me, then how do I really know that you're friendly? It's used to elicit fear in us and still used today. Our brains are also look at people's faces for signs of sickness, disease, or disfigurement as a natural mechanism against endangering healthy gene pools. All these factors combined over tens of thousands of years have created an understanding and an awareness in us of what is considered healthy, pleasing, and non-threatening. Our brains are remarkably well-tuned to respond to healthy, inviting facial features. So naturally, when we see CG characters or robots that aren't really quite convincing enough or believable enough, we automatically feel repulsed and threatened by them, as if someone is masquerading as a dangerous threat. So this is the Uncanny Valley. A lot of artists and studios intentionally steer clear of creating realistic humans and choose a more stylized approach as a way to mitigate the effects of the Uncanny Valley. It's a great solution, but we think that we can absolutely push past the Uncanny Valley with the right tricks and the right people working on this problem. It's a monumental problem to solve. We're not claiming we've solved it today, but I think we have the right sort of mentality to fix it. A big shift in the industry that happened about 3 or 4 years ago was this idea of reality capture. And this has led to some significant advancements in how we create characters for real-time graphics. The biggest push, I think, forward in this field is the use of photogrammetry. Photogrammetry is essentially stitching multiple images of a real subject together and creating a lifelike 3D model out of them. Also equipped, with really realistic textures that are derived from the photography. So that really solves the visuals, at least on the surface. Infusing motion capture technology, which has progressed immensely over the past few decades, serves to address a lot of the performance issues that are associated with the Uncanny Valley. So when we combine reality capture together with photogrammetry, we start getting something that we identify with a bit more, and it allows us to have empathy for these levels of characters. So I'd be remiss to not point out and acknowledge a few. Do you mind playing the video? A few pioneers in this space that have really pushed the medium forward.
And then we're going to
so this is Paul Bewick. He's a researcher at the University of Southern California's Institute of Creative Technologies. He's developed something called the light stage. And what the light stage does is capture the BSDF, which is the bidirectional scattering distribution function of light and how it plays off the surface of humans. So what this technique allows Paul to do is capture every interaction of light and how it plays off of the surface of a human. He can also separate lighting channels and create really accurate photoreal, physically based texture maps and models that really reflect the true reality of how light interacts with humans inside of 3D mediums. As well, I'd like to acknowledge the work of Jorge Jimenez. He's a graphics research and development technical director at Activision Blizzard. His work is work on the generation of skin rendering for real-time graphics has been truly phenomenal and groundbreaking. So I think this tech was applied to the Call of Duty franchise, first on the Black Ops title. So this is kind of marrying the two equations together, the photoreal capture data and real-time rendering advancements. And you can see the result. It's pretty incredible, pretty stunning visuals. So at Quantum Capture, we are intent on following this trend in the industry and applying it to VR and characters for immersive technologies. So this is a photo of our capture rig. At our studio, it's a 112 DSLR photogrammetry rig that allows us to capture head-to-toe, full-figure 3D character scans, as well as really high-res facial scans. A couple examples of some work we've done with past clients. So you can really see the level of detail that we're now able to capture is not leaving much to imagination anymore. You can see the characters' pores, stubble, even the taste buds on the tongue are represented there. Just an example of a full body character scan. So problem solved, right? We've got it figured out. No more Uncanny Valley. Not quite. So as we push the level of character rendering and understanding of character graphics forward, that only solves part of the equation. With this level of character, now you have to solve for the performance and the behaviors that really make you believe that you're interacting with a CG human, or a real human, I should say. But for most people and most studios with small teams, This is an impossible feat. We know from our time working in the industry what the budgets and time restraints look like for a character art team. It's sometimes upwards of $500,000 per project and months and months of work. So we're currently working on some tools to actually streamline the process a lot and ultimately, hopefully, democratize this level of character for smaller teams that are working in the VR world. So we're developing a middleware solution called Quantum Human. Basically, the tool sits outside of the game engine. It gives you access to pre-made character assets that we've scanned at our studio. They snap together kind of like Lego, and they've all been retopologized, texture baked, set up with the correct parameters for lighting correctly inside of the engine. And this tool is intended to allow developers to design and create their own characters, as well as pipe in automated procedural animation to puppet the character's performance in real time inside of the engine. So there's a little snapshot of the architecture, very simplified. So you can imagine once you've subscribed to our platform, Quantum Human would be installed on your computer. From there, you would have open access to a library of character assets, which are represented on the left there, as well as behavioral code. This is like procedural animation tools that we're working on. And we would combine those inside of Quantum Human and output a character in a standard file format that would be easy to import into some of the more dominant game engines that are out on the marketplace right now, like Unreal and Unity. And from there, developers really have access to the tools they need to start breathing in believable character performance into their applications. So we've chosen to focus on 4 distinct pillars for Quantum Human. Is this playing? Yep. Visual quality being the first. So this is an example of a couple character head scans that are going through some stress tests. And each one of these expressions was a unique scan that we captured with our camera rig. And we've retopologized the character and cooked it down to a lightweight animation-friendly mesh. And then also combined all these poses into one character asset that's parameterizable, meaning we can call these expressions on cue in runtime at 90 frames a second. So the other pillar we've chosen to focus on is real-time edits of characters and customization inside of the editor. So we think that it's going to become a standard to be able to manipulate and design your character at runtime, as opposed to taking it back out of the engine, setting it up in Maya, re-exporting it with all new skin weights and rigs and all that good stuff. It'd be much easier if we had character modules that we can just snap together and design on the fly. Maybe do you want to jump in here and talk about some of the other aspects?
Sure.
The 2 other pillars.
Okay.
So snap forward. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Can we go back one? Okay. Hey, guys. So I just want to talk a little bit about some of this tech we're developing, as Morgan was mentioning, for kind of automating the animation process, making developers' lives easier. So we have to acknowledge some tremendous help we've had from the University of Toronto. There's the DGP, Dynamic Graphics Project, and DIESEL, Department of Computer Science Innovation Labs. So DGP has been working on some of the most impressive, groundbreaking 3D graphics and rendering technology for over 10 years now, with some amazing results. And the tool I'm about to show you is actually one of those examples. And DIESEL is a campus-linked accelerator that's helping to get small businesses exposure and funding and access to some of the awesome resources that U of T has. So there's great research in AI, obviously rendering, and they're looking to just make as many connections and help out as much as possible. So a lot of help from those guys. Actually, do you mind playing the video? Thanks.
I'll skip ahead in the slide too.
From The Merchant of Venice, Act 4, Scene 1, by William Shakespeare. Recorded for LibriVox.org by Kirsten Ferreri.
So This tool was pioneered by a PhD student named Piff Edwards. He's a genius. He's working with Academy Award-winning animator Chris Landreth. He's done some awesome films you may or may not seen over the years, but you should definitely check out Ryan, for example, is amazing. So between the two of them, they've designed this facial animation tool that basically it works just with an audio file and a text transcript. So just a bit of background, facial animation and lip sync especially is just the bane of any animator's or character artist's existence. It's really hard to set up, it takes a very long time, and it's painstaking. So you know, a request we've always had from clients is, you know, how do you make your characters perform? And traditionally it's with, you know, performance capture or hand-keyed animation, both of which are tough. They require really specialized teams, and they're expensive. So with a tool like this, you can basically offload all of that work into the tool using only an audio file and a text transcript. And you know, the result is pretty much as good as if you'd sat there and hand-keyed everything, or you'd actually captured like a performer's face. So we're working to commercialize this right now. This runs inside Maya currently. We're working to make this real-time ready as well, so it'll work in Unreal and Unity, and going forward, other third-party engines out there. Can you play this video too, please?
Sheep and doesn't know where to find them. Leave them alone and they'll come home, wagging their tails behind them. Little Bo Peep has lost her sheep and doesn't know where to find them. Leave them alone and they'll come home, wagging their tails behind them. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water.
So it's a very bizarre video, but I'll attempt to explain.
Jill came tumbling after.
I'll attempt to explain what's going on there. So another cool feature with this system is the ability to actually detect the style of speech from the performer. So in this case, that actor recorded the same dialogue 5 different times, and I'll explain what they were. So the first time was as if he was a ventriloquist, so with almost no movement of the jaw or the lips. The second one was like a loud, drunken conversation. The fourth was as if he was talking through his teeth. The fifth, as in like opera singing almost. And then the last one was normal conversation. So the difference here being there are lip sync tools out there, but all they do is kind of puppet the mouth. And I'm sure we've all seen bad examples of lip sync out there. This one's actually able to interpret exactly the intention and the speaking flow and cadence of the user. So you get much more natural mouth shapes between the lips, the jaw, the tongue, and you know, it looks almost as good as, you know, anything performance capture, anything hand keyed. So it's a big advancement. We're super excited, and you know, those guys have done a tremendous job. So something we've been working on internally is what we're calling third-party cognitive support. So again, traditionally, if you're looking to make a character perform, you know, you record the motion capture, you record the you know, the audio of the person performing, and you kind of play it back, whatever, based on events, based on interactions from the player. You know, it's very, you know, kind of linear. Everything's set up in advance. It's very, very scripted. So what we're looking to do is actually have our characters powered by what are essentially chatbot technology. So there's Google's APIs.ai, Amazon Alexa, IBM Watson, Microsoft Bot Framework. There's one called Pullstring we're using, which is great. And what this allows us to do is kind of set up all this interaction using these tools. So
Next slide.
So actually, we've got an example with, we chose Pullstring because it's very conversational. So you can essentially set up like a branching dialogue. So you have like your main conversation topic. You can kind of branch out into like secondary topics, and even it has the ability to like segue into something completely unrelated. So, you know, you're talking about, I don't know, cars or something, and then you ask, oh, what's the weather in Tokyo today? You could branch off, ask the bot that, and then go back into the main conversation. So I'm sure everyone's seen kind of like Siri and Alexa, which they're obviously really cool, but they're not quite conversational back and forth yet. we're actually getting to that point now. And the idea being that you can have a natural two-way conversation with like a realistic 3D scan or 3D avatar. Again, their mouth would be using that technology to have really accurate lip sync, and their brain would be powered by API.ai or Pullstring or Watson, Alexa. And this opens up whole new avenues of possibilities. So clients can actually go in and set up all this stuff behind the scenes themselves. They don't need to get in the game engine and program all this dialogue. They can write the script. For training and simulation, it's been of huge interest to quite a few clients. So in terms of like working in training sales staff or working with negotiation training, all this stuff is now a possibility, and it doesn't require 100 people in a game engine for 2 years to build. It's very quick. Actually, I might throw it back to Morgan for this one.
So that's kind of where we are today, and where our character technology is being used most actively is in games and the VFX world. That's today. So you might have seen this. This is in the trailer for the Consumer VR show. This is an example of one of our character scans being used in a video game and in production. This is director Guillermo del Toro, most notable for Pan's Labyrinth and Hellboy, I believe. We scanned him at our studio with the Sony Interactive team last summer, and this is an example of the end result of what a virtual Guillermo del Toro looks like. So this is actually a playable character in a new Kojima game called Death Stranding. It's kind of like proof that the technology is getting to the point where it needs to be for games at the moment. But we don't want to stop at games and entertainment. We see applications for virtual humans targeting many different segments of industry and domains. Most recently, we've just wrapped up a pilot project with 2 anesthesiologists at the Sunnybrook and Sick Kids Hospitals in Toronto, who are using VR and virtual humans to train med students and new intakes on how to perform life-saving operations inside of the trauma bay. So this was a quick turnaround pilot project where a user was actually going through the diagnostics of how to treat a patient based off of symptoms that the patient was exemplifying. We had to replicate those symptoms pretty accurately inside of VR. And then set up the game state to be able to assess whether the user was making the correct decisions to diagnose the patient accurately. From there, the user actually had to make a decision to grab a medical instrument that was needed to treat the patient for the specific disease or injury. It's called a bronchoscope. It's a fiber optic breathing tube insertion tool. So we use the Vive controller to pick this up as the bronchoscope, guide it into the patient's throat, making sure not to enter into the esophagus and keep it inside of the larynx. Move it past the point of injury at the throat there, and then successfully deploy a cuff on the end of the breathing tube, which would then allow the patient to breathe, or the doctors to breathe for the patient. So this is an example of character tech being applied in the industry today outside of games. And for the doctors that we've worked with, they see this as being a really viable solution to reducing the cost of training new intakes in these really expensive simulation labs that are located only in downtown metropolitan hospitals. They think the idea of packing a laptop like this and a Vive into a bag and deploying it out into like the remote regions of, I don't know, Saskatchewan or something, will give doctors the ability to train at the same level as they would in downtown core. So one example of character technology being used outside of the games industry. Longer term, we see virtual characters being applied to enterprise solutions and beyond. We really feel that high fidelity, great looking characters are the missing key to VR's adoption to the mass market. So this is just a concept of what may be an IKEA app that you'll download on your HoloLens in the next 2 or 3 years. You can imagine a scenario where you've put on the HoloLens, you've downloaded the IKEA app, you're standing inside of your living room space. Your HoloLens has mapped the entire area, knows it's spatially aware of the furniture and your walls and the coffee table in your room. And then it queues up a IKEA saleswoman who has the entire knowledge of IKEA's sales and training staff and access to e-commerce solutions built into her mind through chatbot technology. And she can stand in that space with you and in real time help you make decisions about your purchase, tell you what 3 couches will fit in your space, what won't, help you make decisions around the materials that you would like, and ultimately make a purchase and check out and have IKEA deliver it to your home the next day. So powerful technology, really virtual humans are the underlying key to that. So yeah, that just about concludes our talk. I would like to say that we're proud to announce we're now a Silicon Valley venture-backed startup. Big shout outs to Tom Emmerich and Super Ventures for making our dream a reality. And lastly, I'll just say we spent considerable time over the last several years understanding what makes a virtual human, what goes into creating a realistic person in CG. And I thought I'd share with you, the best way that I've seen to keep advancing my skill sets is to actually have my own little virtual human who's on the way in October. So, yeah. With that. Nice. Guess we'll open it up to some questions. No questions?
Yep, I'm right there actually.
With the character AI, I was wondering about latency, passing information back and forth to the cloud. We're used to some kind of 5-6 millisecond. How do you guys address that? Is that an issue or?
So currently, there is latency involved for sure. It kind of depends on the length of the input from the user. If it's a long question or a long response, it kind of depends on whatever that length is, and then it has to be analyzed in the cloud and spit back. So anywhere from like 1 to 3 seconds or so. It's not something that's really that we can really fix or change. It's kind of relied on the current state of the technology. So yeah, there's latency, but it's getting better and better. I mean, even in the last few months, we've seen new systems come online that are promising bigger and bigger things. So yeah, it's a problem or a bit of an issue now, but it'll be solved very soon, I think.
Cool. I think we have to go. Thanks, guys.
Oh.